Hey guys, coming at you with a bonus video this week and hoping to put out one every week of December that are some shorter videos, helpful videos that will correspond with my Saturday uploads and some money saving and just easy recipes for the holiday season. So make sure you hit that bell icon and hit all notifications so you don't miss an upload. Today, I think I'm finally ready to bring you a keto corn syrup recipe. So let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, thanks for joining me. My name's Alycia. I'm a pastry chef with a sweet tooth, and now I own a keto gluten-free bakery, and I'm here to bring you all the tips and tricks on how to make the best recipes possible. So if you enjoy my content, please hit the subscribe button down there, give the video a thumbs up, leave me comments, and share with all your friends and family, especially over the holidays. They'll be happy you did. It all helps me, my bakery, my channel grow, and to bring you new videos every Saturday and some bonus videos. Today, keto corn syrup. This is something I mentioned back a whole year ago when I put up my pecan pie recipe. But testing corn syrup is a pain in the butt because allulose is completely different than sugar and corn. Obviously corn syrup is made of corn, but it's so hard to pinpoint what's going to happen with allulose. And testing corn syrup takes a long time because you got to heat it to certain temperatures with certain amounts of water, and then you got to let it cool completely to see what the temperature is going to be, and then you have to test it in recipes. So I have been putting off testing and figuring out corn syrup, but I think I finally got it. I'm not going to say 100% that I have all the information because I literally learn something new every day about allulose, but I think I have a good grasp on it. I tried recipes with it. It worked. I did a bunch of testing. So time to get started on this keto corn syrup recipe, or keto allulose syrup recipe, I guess. So I said keto allulose syrup, but they already have that on the market, and I am coming at you with a video on how to make that because it's much cheaper to make your own, but that'll be 2 weeks from now probably. A corn syrup is much stiffer than an allulose syrup you'd buy, on Amazon or at the store. So the whole thing was finding the right temperature to cook the allulose to in order to work in, say, the most popular, a pecan pie recipe. Because right after I put up my pecan pie video, I tried another pecan pie with it cooked to 350, like I said in that video, and it didn't quite set. It wasn't like a thick custard in the pie. It was more like a caramel syrup instead of like the solid custard you want. So I kind of gave up and I started testing again this year. So I found out that if you cook down allulose, say you do a cup of allulose, you're only going to get a half cup of syrup. So I do suggest making a double batch or a 2-cup batch of corn syrup because like a pecan pie takes a full cup. So I'm gonna open up another bag of allulose and I just weigh everything to be super accurate, especially in my testing, because I want to get the same result every time. So I even made another batch yesterday just to be positive on this recipe, and you want to have it the same every time. So it should be 2 cups, should be 320 grams. That was a little bit over, but I didn't level it out either. So, but also then you have clumps that are going to weigh more. It all depends on the grind of your allulose though, how much a cup will weigh. Another new thing I found out is that the amount of water actually does matter. I really didn't think it did, and I don't think it really matters when you're doing the caramels. Like when you're going to the caramel stage of like 350, you're smelling that burnt caramelized sugar, you're evaporating the water, getting it to that color. The amount of water might change how long it takes and stuff like that, but this, I did 1 cup of allulose with 1 ounce of water. So when I went to double it, I did 2 cups of allulose, 2 ounces of water. And this was the result. This is the difference between a 2-cup batch and a 1-cup batch. 2 ounces of water, 1 ounce of water. It took so long to get it up to the temperature that I needed for a corn syrup. It went too far without me even realizing it. I'm like, okay, well, I cooked my first one to 260. I'm cooking this one to 260. It's still not at 260. Why isn't it at 260? And like, I saw the color and I'm like, this isn't right. This isn't right. But I didn't want to vary from the test I was doing. So I ended up taking it to 260, and it's so thick. I still have it and I don't know what to do with it now, but it made me realize that we only need 1 ounce of water even in our 2-cup batch. So I just weigh it on the scale, make sure it's nice and accurate. So 28 grams. I try to put it kind of around it, but we're mixing this all together anyways. Okay, putting this on the stove. And another thing with allulose is you need to cook it at a low temperature because it will start browning before it's all even melted if you have it at too high of a temperature. So I found the best is between medium and low on your stove. You can crank it up once all of the sweetener is completely dissolved in the mixture. But allulose is very finicky, so I'm trying to tell you the best and easiest way to make this. And then the only other ingredient I was adding is a little bit of citric acid to keep it from recrystallizing, because I have had that problem with it. And it's usually just if I cook it at too high of a temperature and the crystals don't fully dissolve before it hits 260. But this is an insurance policy that it won't recrystallize on you. For a 2-cup batch, we only need 1/8 of a teaspoon. Now, corn syrup that comes like in the bottle, the Caro corn syrup says it has vanilla and salt in it. I just say add that to whatever recipe you're making instead of to this, because I have added stevia because allulose isn't as sweet as sugar, so I wanted to make it sweeter. The stevia crystallized it. Same thing with, I think if you add vanilla or salt or anything else to it, allulose is so unpredictable. That's the word. So I would just keep it simple with just the thick allulose syrup. So like I said, we're cooking this to 260. I have a laser thermometer. It shouldn't really be browning at all. And give it an initial stir, but you just really need to let this allulose all melt down. Allulose is crazy. Like as soon as it melts, it is super sticky. But if you add it to water, it just dissolves and goes away. It's crazy. Now, while that's cooking, I'm going to talk about when to use this and how to use it. Because if it sits overnight, it gets super, super thick and it's really hard to work with. Yesterday, I had 2 batches, one that had recrystallized. I microwaved it 50% power until I can break up the puck of crystals. And then I warmed it on low, like completely low on the stove until all the crystals were melted. And then I added the citric acid. I didn't add any to that batch to see what would happen, and it did crystallize. So if it happens to crystallize, even with adding the citric acid, you can still save it. You just really need to cook it at like the lowest low on your stove to get all those crystals remelted in there. But I used it when it was about at 85 degrees for one recipe. And another recipe I was working on, basically a pecan pie filling, they all have melted butter in them. So what I did is I added the butter and the corn syrup into a container and heated it in the microwave together on low power to get the allulose nice and mixed in there. And it worked a lot easier. It's already starting to boil around the edges, but it's not even melted in the middle. So I'm gonna turn it down even more, because you want to have all those crystals melted. Like this should be crystal clear. That was one of my problems in an earlier test, is I just didn't have it at low enough of a temperature. So by the time it was at 260, there were still some crystals in the middle here. We're at about 200. Once most of the crystals are melted, I just leave my spatula out and I continue to swirl the pan around and take the temperature as it goes. Reading at about 220, but there's still like little crystals in there. I'm gonna get my 1/8 of a teaspoon of citric acid ready. It's starting to become clearer now. I have used this corn syrup even at like 110 degrees. As long as your eggs that you're using are mixed with something else, you should be fine adding warm corn syrup to your mixture. It also helps dissolve our sweeteners more, so it works in a couple different ways. A little bit better when you use it warm. Okay, at this point, I'm gonna turn it up a little bit. We're just about all melted. We just gotta get all those little crystals melted and up to 260. I'm still just under medium. Okay, we're at 255, okay. You want it to constantly be reading around 260, and it was reading at 270. but it was barely boiling, so probably only at about 260. The thing is, when you're swirling it, you can be getting the temperature at the bottom of the pot too. So, and see, there still seems to be some crystals in there, like it doesn't seem to be super clear, but adding the citric acid will help it not recrystallize. And then you just put it in something to cool. Now, if you watched my pecan pie video, I poured it into a Pyrex measuring cup. It took so long to cool down, like crazy. And I know you guys hate me using the plastic containers to pour hot things into, but they're containers that are specifically made for restaurants, and we always put stuff in them that's hot, but it makes it cool down so much faster. So if you have silicone, would probably be good. Metal holds on to heat and glass holds on to heat. So if you put it in glass, it'll take hours to cool down. But if you put it into a silicone or something like that, it'll take a lot less time. I'll pour it into here just to show you it is 1 cup. And it doesn't even look that thick when it's that hot, but it gets crazy. I'll show you some that I did yesterday. So it is 1 cup. So if you're making a pecan pie with this, you know, you make that first, let it sit for maybe an hour or so, start making the rest of your pie. You gotta make your pie crust and all that other stuff. So the corn syrup can chill while you're doing the rest of your stuff for that. But I would use it at like 110 degrees. And in my video, I think I mentioned to take the filling off the mixer once you got everything incorporated and add in the corn syrup instead of trying to use the whisk, because it's so thick that it's hard to get it to incorporate without hitting the whisk in your mixer. But also, like I said, you have melted butter in that pecan pie filling. So if you have some that's been sitting and is really cold, you can heat it up on low temperature with the butter and kind of mix it together to get it a little bit more loose and easier to mix into the filling. But these are 2 different batches I made, but this is how, like, it is super, super thick. You can still use it at this, you know, stage, but I would definitely spray whatever you're scooping with oil, or you can even just microwave it a tiny bit on 50% power to get it a little bit more loosey-goosey, and it'll be easier to use in a recipe. So one of these, I can't remember which one was the one that was crystallized, and I re-warmed it and added the citric acid. I think this is the double batch I did. And I tried, like I said, at 250 where it was more like the consistency of regular corn syrup, and it just did not set our pecan pie the right way. So this is the temperature you need to be able to set a pie with using allulose. Now, besides pecan pies, which is pretty much the most common use of corn syrup, I'd say, especially around the holiday time, but I actually first made this recipe to make keto fondant for my wedding cake. And even back then, I didn't really like test it. I just kind of cooked it until it was a thick syrup and then added it to the rest of the ingredients for a regular fondant. A lot happened with my wedding, and I didn't even end up doing fondant because I didn't have time to do more testing on it to like perfect it, and I ended up just doing like whipped ganache and poured ganache on my wedding cake because I just didn't have time. I did use the gum paste and made a bunch of pretty roses for my wedding cake. Since then, another recipe I haven't done a video for, which I think it's just because people aren't probably going to be interested in it, people like me maybe, but I used it to make my son's birthday cake last year. I made a keto modeling chocolate, and I made this cake with it. So modeling chocolate is basically corn syrup and melted chocolate. So that was another recipe I did with corn syrup. I have had this sitting on my counter for over a week and it has been fine. So I think you can make big batches of this and have it sitting for when you need it. Just make sure you put it into a clean container and have it sealed up nice once it's cooled down, and you should be able to pull it out, rewarm it a little bit, and use it for any of your recipes. I hope you guys found this video helpful and you find some uses for this keto corn syrup and have a fun time with all your holiday baking. Don't forget to check out my Amazon shop page. The link is down in the description box below, along with the blog link to the full corn syrup recipe and everything I've learned. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, I'll be back with many more keto, low-carb, healthy meals, desserts, and snack recipes. And helpful keto ingredient recipes. Bye guys. Happy keto baking.